I mean, I can't sing all those notes, but the way that I'm thinking, I mean, I am hearing the notes, you know, and I'm thinking maybe.
What Chris Potter is doing here is much more important than you think. Chris Potter is singing the rhythm of an imaginary line. This line from a recent solo of Chris Potter just popped into his mind and materialized on the saxophone. So how did he do that? I think a lot of players have learned to see a line, see the chords, and then play something that fits the chords, and not really hear what they are playing. When studying music, we are often told to play the arpeggios in our scales. We are told to practice the scales up and down. So of course, when we play a jazz line playing what we have practiced, we sound like the exercise we practiced.
I find it really helpful just sing the idea.
So what Chris Potter is telling us to do here is that phrasing and rhythm is much more important. And when you hear what you want to play up front, everything in music just becomes much easier. Try this, only sing the rhythm of the Chris Potter lick. And what I do then is adding the simple rhythm into a common 2-5-1 lick. I'm not using the exact Chris Potter rhythm, I'm translating this into 8 notes. Singing a rhythmical line first, then adding tones to it later makes so much sense, because the rhythm is so much more clear. And another aspect in this is your brain. Your brain has much faster access from singing or speech to your brain and into your fingers and onto this weird instrument you're playing. When you develop this skill, getting access to all this rhythm, you get a much more fluent playing, because your brain basically tells you what you need to play on your instrument. You get a much more varied and much more interesting jazz language. Why don't we start by making up a simple rhythmical line? To keep it simple, make sure you use 8 notes and quarter notes only. And also for simplicity, let's work with the simple 2-5-1, D minor G7. So now I take the rhythm and add it into my chord material. And if you want to add this to the full 2-5-1, you just repeat the rhythm in bar 3 and 4. And as you see, the rhythmical figure is repeated on the C major 7. When getting into practicing the line, you only need the rhythm once, because the rhythm is the same. You can add different tones to it. Try different tone material on the same rhythm. So when you sing the rhythm, try to imagine these tones to get the clear and direct connection from your singing, from your brain, from the rhythm into the tones. So what you really want to develop is a direct line, a direct access from the rhythm onto your fingers in the horn, adding the tones to the horn. You have gotten this far, the rhythm and the tones, we need to discuss the most important matter, phrasing. So when you want to get better at hearing what's going on in your head and expressing this on your instrument, the lesson manual PDF on Patreon is full of written out singing exercises, rhythmical exercises that are translated into licks that you can add directly into your playing. Sing the rhythm and lick this into your instrument. Add it to your inner voice and play what you hear. The lesson manual PDF download link is in the description. We were talking about phrasing. You might have noticed that I've added small accents to the lines I've been playing and singing. This is actually what I unconsciously sing when I sing the lines to myself. I sing these accents because this makes the lines sound more jazzy. Da do ba do da. Do 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 da do da. When you're singing a rhythm, you must notice how you're singing it and mimic that phrasing on your instrument, that you actually get that jazz phrasing you're imagining. And of course, when you add tones to the rhythm, you add the phrasing too. So this is the easy part. It becomes much more serious and much more challenging when you change the rhythm between bars, or singing over more bars, or singing over the bar line. Da dee da dee da da do da da do da da. The trick is to go really slow. Let me slice this up. Sing the rhythm multiple times and learn it by heart. When you have sung the line many times, start adding the notes. da do da da. Start slowly by adding these notes, maybe only 2 bars at a time. You're not in a hurry, so make sure you are making bite-sized chunks. When you've gotten used to play one part and singing one part, add the tones to the last part. And I really advise you to take multiple turns at this to get the sound really right. When the lines get more complicated, when you add more rhythm, when you go more over the bar lines, you also need to hear where the chords are going. You need to learn the sound of the chords, the sound of how the progression is moving. A really good way to learn this is playing a lot of chord exercises over the chord progressions you're playing. That you get used to hearing the chords, the chord material and the progression as one thing. Another thing that really helps is playing exercise scales into the chord progression. In this way you get used to how the tone material sounds over the chord progressions, and it's easier to add the tones when you have the rhythm. Did you notice what I was saying there? You need to find the sound that fits over the tunes you are playing. It's not just playing the scales up and down, it's really play the fitting tones to the chord progression. That you connect the sound of the progression into the scales and the chords. And to help you with this, I have made all these great solo manuals that take you through the sounds of the chords of different jazz standards. And there are lots and lots of different chord and scale approaches, scale exercises, chords exercises, but played over the tune that you can get right into the sound of the tune. When training chords and scale material, hearing the chord progression, these solo manuals are really valuable. The solo manual PDF download link is in the description. In this tune Perdido, which I can really recommend to start with because it's a quite easy scheme, you see that the progression, as I said, is quite easy. It's basically a 2-5-1 in the A parts. And you definitely see the links between the chord I use and the chords in Perdido. So when I'm doing this, it's about hearing, it's really about hearing the rhythm, but you need to hear it over the tunes you are playing. So I want to direct you in that direction. Play the rhythm of the tunes you are playing. So start with singing rhythm over this progression. When I'm singing this rhythm, I kind of imagine the chords, I'm kind of imagining the scales. I'm trying to find out what chord tone I'm to begin with, but it's very abstract in my head when I'm doing this. That you need to be so clear when you have the rhythm. You need to have so much control over the sound you are playing. Then you see I'm using a little bit of phrasing. The 2 tunes I accented here are very important. The first tune I've accented on the D minor is on the 2, so the upbeat to the 2 must suggest that it's a 2. And the last accent is a 4 and you need to make the tone sound like it's a 4 and moving over to that C major chord. A trick to get this process faster is singing the rhythm and directly after, in time, play the tones fitted into the rhythm. Do da do da do da da do da. Do da do da do da da do da. The main thing is when you do this back and forth, keep the timing going. But do da da do da. When you divide the 2-5 line up like this, I have the D minor G7 and then I have the C major A7 here in the second part. You could take more tries to get the right tones fitting, but keep it in the timing because you need to get your brain thinking fast. When you have got this, start working with full 4-bar lines. Ba-ba-dee-da, ba-dee-da-dee-da, da-do-da-do-da. And then try directly after to fill in the notes. When you start repeating this process and when you start digging into this process, you will see that you get much faster in hearing a line and then immediately reacting to what you're hearing and reacting to what you just played. I have filled the lesson manual PDF on Patreon with a lot of rhythmical licks, a lot of beautiful tones that you can use immediately. So when you want all these licks, you should download the lesson manual on Patreon. If you want the solo manual where there are lots of exercise in how to hear the chord progressions and scale progressions of different tunes, it's also on Patreon. All the solo manuals focus on the jazz standard repertoire, and both links are in the description for you to find. When you're learning jazz, it's so important to learn the sound of the tunes you're playing. I really recommend you to check out this video on how to learn tunes. Play music, have fun.